Extreme value theorem is all about finding max or mins. It's all about extrema. So everything we're going to talk about in this lesson has to do with maximums and minimums. So let's make sure we know what maximums and minimums are. If f is our function with domain D, then f of c is the absolute, and absolute is an important word, max, if and only if all other f of x's are less than or equal to f of c for all x values in D. Conversely, f of c is the absolute minimum value on D if and only if all f of x's are greater than or equal to f of c for all x in D. Once you've written down your definition, go ahead and give me a rough sketch of y equals sine x on the closed domain 0 to pi.
I just don't know what its value is.
Yeah, you should stop. 1, 0, cosine 1, 0, sine 0,
I winged it.
Except for you didn't follow the directions.
Did I follow the directions?
Set on the closed domain 0 to pi.
Yeah.
You grabbed 0 to 2 pi.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I just grabbed it wrong, I guess, but I grabbed it to pi.
And then beyond.
No, it says pi.
You just grabbed it.
Then you grabbed it wrong.
Oh.
Make that pi to 2 pi. Make your middle point the pi. And then cut the other ones all in half. And then you'll be perfect. Except for you just grabbed the wrong bit.
So I'll just put an X over that.
So, sine of x from 0 to pi is only the first hump. Sine, I guess.
I really thought I was
So, it has an absolute max at the peak, which is at pi halves, which we know to be 1. If you think about your unit circle, we know that that's up here at 1. It has 2 absolute minimums. This is a closed domain. So these 2 points here are identical. Therefore, they are both the absolute min. Good? Understood. What I want to do is investigate the same types of questions, but closing the domain for a similar type of function. How are we doing on this one? We good? Okay. We have y equals x squared plus 2. This is a quadratic shifted up 2 units, right? The questions are, what are the absolute extrema? So if the domain is all reals, do I have a min or a max? Or both? I have a min. So I have an absolute min. And where is that at? Do I have an absolute max? No. Absolute means it is a defined clear point. So these graphs extend infinitely positive. Therefore, there is no absolute max. What if I close the domain? What if I said now all we want to do is take a snapshot from 0 to 2? Okay, so now where would my absolute min be?
0.
Where would my absolute max be?
2, 6.
Wait, how do you do that again?
So you take 2 and plug it in. 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6.
Oh, there was a formula.
Yeah.
I was just eyeballing that.
This is mine.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Like the graph looks like that, but yeah. 6-1.
What happens if I open the graph at 2, but keep it, or open the graph at 0, but keep it closed at 2?
It doesn't include
Yeah, which means there's no absolute.
Yeah, there would be no absolute min.
Just because it could go in and it close to 2.
Yep. So no longer an absolute min. However, I still have an absolute max at 2, 6. And what about 0 to open on both ends? No.
I like the word nothing.
All right. So what I did was I gave you a graphical example. So it says a function does not have a maximum or minimum on an interval. For instance, in figure 1, you can see that the function f of x equals x squared has both a max and a min because the interval is closed from -1 to 2. So you have a max and a min because it is a closed interval. In figure 2, they are both open circles, so that creates no maximum. However, I have a minimum because there is a lower point than the beginning and the end points. So there is an absolute min because it is lower than the open end points. And then same in figure 3, they are closed endpoints, but open at 0, 1, so there's no min. So that's an open point at 0, 1. That leads us into EVP.
I don't know.
I like extreme things. Can we drink some Red Bull? I've never had Red Bull. I have never tried Red Bull.
If what?
I've never tried Red Bull. He said we eat it.
It's really good.
It's bad for you.
Of course it is.
Everything's
There's a lot
pretty
of
much
things
bad for you,
that's
so.
I've never tried.
People say mac and cheese is bad for me, and I'm still.
Yeah, mac and cheese is bad for you.
If f is continuous on a closed interval, then f is guaranteed an absolute max and an absolute min.
Are you so good?
I mean, you could just put an F past both, but guaranteed is G-U-A-R-N-T-E. G-U-A-R. No, I missed an E. G-U-A-R-E.
R-R-Y.
Gary. There's another E.
I missed one, didn't I?
No, it's at the end. Guaranteed.
Look, I started to do it, and I just made it in my D.
You're dead.
I thought it was an A.
Ted Pooh.
I did. I wrote it like in my D. Like I was like
No,
E
this
D.
is like when you say a word like 20 times and it doesn't sound like a word.
I have the gist.
Guaranteed.
Do you like not believe that that's how you spell it?
Not at all.
No,
He's
there's no-
googling it. He doesn't
I
believe
think
me.
it's right. It looks right. Well, my brain when I
start
thought-
looking at it, it just doesn't look real.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's no E. It's just A.
You guys told me there was an E.
I knew there was an A.
Wait a minute, hold on.
I have an A on my.
I have one bar, so look.
What? It doesn't look right.
G-U-A-R-A-N-T-E-E.
He told me it was an E.
What are you gonna do?
An A.
Is it okay to say
It's a
you
closed
forgot the
parenthesis.
word who? How to spell who? I spent like 20 minutes when they trying to spell who.
Who will win?
This is why I teach math. English is garbage.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, no words make any sense.
DM the video of the show. Let's see what goes on.
Don't you dare.
I want to see it throw down.
I
Wait
still
versus
have
Dan
Josh's
versus-
video
English
on
is only
recording
used
for
for teaching math.
hostage.
That's his blackmail
Yeah.
That's
problem.
blackmail.
I
know
got
there's
my
nothing
own
to
Here's
views
the
now.
thing, I don't have that calculator anymore.
He lost it.
He lost all of them. Do you hear?
Physical
When you put
evidence
it in
is
the
gone.
calculator for the test. Yeah, if F.
Yeah, he is it. That's it.
I think that's all you need, honestly.
Yeah, if F.
That can get
If
you really
F
far.
is F.
If that's your grade.
It's
Wow.
gonna be.
It's gonna be.
Probably after that
That
test, the
deserves
students
a
dropped
max.
the fade.
Yeah, after that test, no, that's serious. I think I probably got a D on it.
Jeez, they where we go.
Oh, no, I have a
I'm not hoping for
I'm not.
Oh, good thing for volleyball.
Listen, I'm calling. Wait.
Wait, what's
Do we
going
get
on?
bonus points just for participating, or do I have to win?
We can
Participate.
Let's go. Nah, man. Team.
I'm not gonna be here.
Us, us three already had a team go.
I'm not gonna be here,
I want it.
so.
He's in two.
You
We
need
got
a
we got
invisible
five.
standard.
Who else wants to
If
be?
you, I told the kids in my other classes if they bought a ticket but couldn't go, they'd still have their points.
Who's the six?
Silly. I don't
Thursday
know.
the 20th.
I'm a girl. You can't do that.
Who's the six?
I said I don't know how much the ticket is, but I'm not even paying for my field trip.
Alright, refocus, because Maddie has to take her test next period, so we gotta get through my
I get
lesson.
one and I say.
I'll take you.
Alright,
Even if you join, if we get a number, you don't have to play if you don't want.
yeah, only 6 play on the court, so if you have too many kids. That's what kids did last year. Like, I had a girl with like a knee brace, so she couldn't play, but she was like on the
She was
team.
the cheerleader.
Torn ACL?
Alright,
So if I hurt myself-
if C is an interior point on the domain of F, if C is an interior point on the domain of F, then F of C could be a local max or a local min if the following are true. A local extrema is another name for a relative. Absolute extrema can be local extrema. The local extrema cannot be.
Are you kidding me? I hate how
I don't know what
I
that
know
is.
exactly.
Is that a V with a, or is that upside down A?
For all. Yeah, the upside down A with a line through it means for all. The upside down A is for all.
What upside down A?
In the second definition.
Oh yeah.
Like, say on the first one I wrote for all, and the second one I did the upside down A. That means for
Did
all.
you hate English that bad that you invented your own words?
No, those are like actual mathematical,
Oh, so what you're saying is.
like how
people
sigma
that
means
invented-
the summation,
If I write it in the ACL.
and how like the three dots means therefore.
Oh, is that one?
Oh yeah, the triangle.
I'm gonna write that in my essays
I like
from now on.
triangle.
So the triangle dots mean therefore. The upside down A means for all. The letter E that's like curved means an element of.
Oh, I thought it was
Really?
Yeah,
I wanna
Like,
see if I
these
can
are
write
like
a
the
sentence.
Greek
That's
mathematics.
that big old, that's that.
I'm gonna write an entire sentence using
If I
only
was
these
raised
words.
in fluent Japanese, I would write in Japanese.
You
but
could.
on all
You could
my
use,
classes, just a minute.
U for the U and the null for like including and not including, and or the or.
Oh yeah, we use it.
Yeah.
This-
We could use mu. Oops. Probably have to do the rest of it.
Friction.
What is mu?
Friction.
The average or friction?
Yeah, the coefficient. The coefficient.
That means a lot.
Coefficient of friction. It means friction is
The
fun.
spring constant.
Spring constant.
Yeah, you just gotta
Friction
use
is fun.
it.
That's how we talk about friction. F is fun. Mu times n.
UK.
Mu times, yeah, F equals mu times N. Which
Oh, I
is friction is
hey.
fun.
No, it was never.
It wasn't
Never.
Really?
Really?
I have a great idea.
I remember like 2 years ago when we said that.
Hey,
If Robert comes up,
I hate it.
Robert
I had
comes
the
up,
right
drop
idea,
that.
but
Yay!
In there and I went,
Look at your graph. Label the local max, local min, absolute max, and absolute min on a closed graph from -1 to 4. On a closed graph. Closed. Closed is más importante.
Wait, you said 1 to 4?
Mhm.
Or -1 to 4? Because the graph's -1 to 4.
-1, sorry.
learn how to calculate these?
I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yes, eventually we will learn how to calculate these. So we have a point here, point there, point here. So these points are not the highest or the lowest, therefore making them local. So this would be a local or a relative min. This would be a local or a relative max. Now, at your endpoints, we notice that the -1 is higher than the 4. So that makes the 4 another local max. X equals -1 will be your absolute max. And x equals 3 will be your absolute min. So that leads us into what we call these points. These are called critical points. So if you think back to the chart I gave you with the F prime, and the F double prime, we talked about extrema on the original become critical points of the derivative. So a critical point is a point in the interior of the domain of F at which F prime equals 0 or does not exist. So all of these points that we labeled would become derivatives of, you have what we call a local extreme value theorem that says if a function f has a local max or a local min at a point C on its domain and f prime exists at C, then f prime of C must equal 0. So the local extreme value theorem tells us that the derivative at that point must be 0. The derivative at that point must be 0.
When it says f prime equals 0 or f prime does not exist, does that mean like when you derive a constant, technically just doesn't exist?
Derivative of constant is 0.
So like, is this saying they're interchangeable because it says it doesn't exist or it's equal?
So no, like a derivative does not exist if you have like a corner or cusp.
Okay.
So like
it's like the bird.
So or if you get a vertical asymptote.
Yeah.
So like on an original, if you had 1 over x minus 1, then this graph is undefined at x equals 1.
Yeah.
Therefore, the derivative does not exist at x equals 1.
You can find it though.
So, yeah.
Well, you can find it
What do you mean?
by finding the limit as it approaches that point.
It would have a limit. Sometimes it would depend on if the limit goes in the same direction.
Well, if it was a hole in the graph, you can find the limit as it approaches that point, right? And then take the derivative of that, and you'd end up getting the derivative at that point, like with that point space. So.
Okay, so to use EBT, I think you're really going to like EBT. EBT essentially says, find the derivative, set it equal to 0. So what's the derivative?
12x to the third minus 48 x squared plus 36x.
What can I do to make this easier? And?
Oh, yeah, 12. My bad.
Does this factor?
Nope.
Yes, -3 and -1.
Okay, so that means this graph has how many zeros?
3.
So we have 1 0 at,
0.
1 0 at, and 1 0 at. I swear he was being, like, serious too. So these are called what?
Critical point of interest.
How many of these are in my interval?
All 3.
All of them.
So here's where this becomes a little bit
Tricky?
gross.
Oh.
What we have to do now is compare
Take it over 4 and
all of these on the original to know which one is the highest and which one is the lowest. Because critical points are possible absolute max or mins, as well as the end points.
So we have to plug them all back.
So we have to plug in our end points. So you need to plug in f of -1.
I don't have enough.
All mine.
We're going to today just for note purposes, but no. On the test, this will be non-critical.
Would we have numbers such as 16?
No, like that's what I said. For this, we're going to do it for notes purposes. So you plug in -1, 0, 1, 3, and 4. The ones aren't bad either. Because, like, this is 3 minus 16 plus 18. So negative 16 and 18 is positive 2. 3 plus 2 is 5.
4 is about to be a hot, so.
So -1 plugged in, that stays positive, that stays positive. 18 and 3 is 21. 21 plus 16 is 37. I just bring it out in front. So like 3, you can take out an x squared. So you'd have like 3x squared minus 16x plus 18. So that's 9. 9 times 3 is 27.
Like, can you move your head a little bit?
Wait, plus 18.
I moved 18 and subtracted at the end.
Oh.
So that's 37. 37 and like it's just, to me it's easier to do it that way. Like to get 45. 45 minus 3. Or 45 minus 48 is -3. -3 times 9. See, that's not bad. Then that's 16. 16 times 3 is 48. 16 times 4 is -64. 58. 58 plus 8. 66 minus 2, 30. No calculator necessary. Like those brains.
It would still take me an hour.
But do you see how bringing out the x squared makes it easier?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you guys would try to do it with leaving the x squared in. Yeah, so then you are taking, like, something to the 4th. If you can make the math easier, make the math easier.
All you need is calculators.
Those calculators.
No.
No, we don't.
If it's not the test, I can't talk about it.
Why?
I still, because Maddie hasn't taken it, and
This is
the
not-
bell's
Yeah,
gonna
this is
ring.
nothing.
She gets to start in 11 minutes, and I need to finish our notes. So no, after I finish this, then you can ask. I need to finish our notes. Okay, find your derivative. Oh, I didn't even finish. Okay, stop. What's the highest? What's the lowest?
The highest is 37,
37,
the lowest
negative
is -27.
So that's your abs max, abs min.
Wouldn't that be local because it's already that restricted to 37?
No, it is. You are
Oh, never mind.
guaranteed an absolute in a closed interval. That is EBT. EBT guarantees.
What if 4 is on the line?
Sorry.
26.6.
Do we do anything with the leftover points?
Nope, they're all local mins or maxes. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, f prime of x equals 3x squared minus 6x. What are your critical points? Say 1/2.
Yeah.
Okay.
without mine.
Thank you.
Okay, so 0 and 2 are my CPs. Both of those lie in my closed interval. Therefore, I have to check my endpoints and all CPs to see which is the absolute. So you have to check f of -1/2. You got to check f of 0. You have to check f of 2 and f of 4. So 0 is always easy. Go 1. So you get 8. 4, 3, -12. 8 minus 12. -4 plus 1.
Oh yeah, I did it faster than
Okay, 4 cubed is 64. Minus 16 times. I want to make, like, you know how, like, you, in your head, you're like, I did it. But then you're like, did I do it right?
Yeah.
That was
I was
my
like-
justifier.
I was like-
please get
I was like,
17.
64 to 48 is only 16, right? Like,
Do we really have to do?
half. Well, it'd be -1/8.
Oh, no.
A half square, a half cubed, because 3 cubed is 8.
Yeah, no,
I mean, 2 cubed is
fractions
8.
are not fun.
Okay, -1/8. And then this would be a -3 over 4 plus 1.
Plus 4 over 4.
Sure. That makes you happy. So that added together is -1/4, -1/4 and an 8 would be -2/8 and -3/8.
0 cubed.
-1/8 minus 8.
You're good.
8.
Dude, why'd you do it like that? Okay.
You plug all of them into the original.
See, I just combined those to get -1/4.
That's what I got too.
And then -1/4 is -2/8.
Well, yeah.
So then you got -3/8.
But that's the same thing as doing -6.
I know. That's so
plus
hard.
8.
Okay. Absolute max.
Wait.
Absolute min.
Wait, what? Is the test gonna
What's
ask-
wrong? What?
Is the test gonna ask you? Is it gonna ask you like what the actual like values are actually bringing up to max are, or is it gonna ask you the point at which they're doing it?
Should be a +1/8.
Yeah.
Or -3/8.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just ask me, Casey?
Because I didn't know how to write. This is so, like, stressful.
Age.
I lose.
We're not recording.
We are.
Yeah, hi, Liz.
Oh no. Oh. Okay. We need to talk about EBT is on what type of interval.
Close.
Close.
Right now, we're just given a
Function.
that does not have a closed interval.
So it's
However, it is a square root in a denominator, so we'll have a closed interval for a domain. So what you have to do is take what's under the square root and guarantee what about what's under a square root. This is a quadratic under a square root. So it's like quadratic inequalities. So this is where like you'd have the quadratic and you either shade it between the parabola or outside the parabola. Remember?
It's an out or out.
That's what you called it?
No.
I was like, what? Okay. So what do you get? You subtract over your 4. Divide by -1. When you divide by a negative, your inequality changes direction. So you get your CPs of this to be positive or -2. So that means we are either within the 2's or outside the 2's. If it was outside, it wouldn't work because it would be an open domain. Do we include the 2's or not include the 2's?
No.
Do not, because
It would be 0.
it would be, well, you can take the square root of 0, you just can't divide by 0.
Yeah.
These are going to be asymptotes because of the denominator. Therefore, any extreme value has to live where? Okay. Can the endpoints be extreme values in this case? Nope. So this is the case. So you have f prime of x, right? What's the derivative of this? X, how do you know?
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Or you could just bring it up for -2.
Negative 1. Okay, times.
It's the same thing. You're just talking about this.
I did that bunch on my test one time. And I was scared it wasn't going to work, but I was like, well, this makes sense. And it's a lot easier. So I'm just going to do this.
So you get negative x over square root 4 minus x squared 4 minus x squared.
So why do you have a little -2x right there? Why do you put that there?
Derivative on the inside.
Wait, that you're multiplying by that?
Yeah, I just ran out of room. Like this goes up here.
Yeah.
I ran out of room. So then a negative, positive. What?
Global warming, am I right?
It's just not the same.
Okay.
Do you have one last year?
Set the war law.
Pretty sure we did.
Pretty sure we did.
Not white and white, maybe like green.
You could also have had x over 4 minus x squared to the 3 halves.
We had
Because a square root and 1 add together. So, where would our critical points lie? Well, we know critical points happen at f prime of x equals 0. Can a denominator equal 0? Can a numerator equal 0?
Yes.
So that means f prime of x equals 0 when the numerator of a fraction equals 0. So in this case, when x equals 0.
Dang, that's awesome.
Where would it not exist?
Where x equals 2. Or -2.
F prime of x would not exist when a denominator is equal to 0. So get rid of your 3 halves times 0. Comes same thing anyways, right? So you get 4 minus x squared equals 0. So we get x equals the plus or minus 2's we already solved up above. We already said this wasn't in our domain. So my only CP is here at 0. Therefore, the absolute max or absolute min has to be at 0. Oh, you're telling me that when you plug it in. Yeah. So it will be at 0, 1 half. Is it going to be a max or going to be a min? Can't be both. So we have f of 0 equals 1 half. What could we do to figure out what this is? Yeah. Because would we plug in on both sides to the original or to the derivative?
The original.
So if you plug into the original, I mean, it would work. If you plug into the derivative, if it is positive, then the original is, so that would tell you it was a max. If you plugged into the derivative and it's negative, then it would tell you it was a min. So I would plug into the derivative just because you don't need to know what the value is, you just need to know what the sign of it is. So if you plug 0 into your derivative, which is here, you're going to get, so maybe that's a bad choice. Plug in -1. I plug in -1. So -1 on top. So negative on top. Inside, you're going to get 4 minus, so minus 1 squared, so 4 minus 1, which is 3. 3 to all of this is positive, so a negative over a positive is a. Over here, plug in 1, you get a positive, positive. Therefore, this goes from decreasing to increasing. Yep. What's wrong?
Where do we plot those? Sorry, where does 1 half come from? I know the 0 and the 2 2s, but the 2 2s don't work.
I just put a number on a number line.
There's so much.
Like, the CP is 0. I just put a number on a number line. You can put it 0. It really doesn't matter. The 1 half I just wrote because I had 1 half there from this is your ABS. Min.
Wait, is that another name?
Same thing. These are both at 0.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, we'll finish the rest of these tomorrow. It won't affect you being able to do your homework. So, because all we're going to do tonight is look at absolute maxes, absolute mins, and EVP.